Welcome, 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 NABJ members of the National Association of Black Journalists, Arts and Entertainment reporters. Thank you so much for joining this webinar that Netflix is sponsoring. Want to thank Netflix for coming on board and participating and sponsoring this and looking out for us. And also want to personally thank Director Spike Lee, who has been a longtime friend of NABJ and our arts and entertainment journalists for being part of this too. So thank you so much, Spike Lee, for doing this and coming back time and time again. And thank you so much, Jonathan Majors and Delroy Lendo, for joining this webinar to talk about this really great new movie that hits right in the gut, considering where we are right now. I want to remind all the participants on this webinar that if you have questions, please drop them in the Q&A chat, and I will be happy to ask the gentlemen who are joining this panel. I'm going to start us off with a couple of questions, and then I know you guys are going to filter in with so many more. So I want to start here. Spike Lee, we've never seen this story be told before. We've never seen the experience of Black Vietnam soldiers and Vietnam vets told on film before. Why did you want to tell the story and tell the story the way that you did?
Thank you for the question. The Vietnam War was the first war that was televised into American homes. Mm. So 1967, I was 10 years old. 68, do the math, 68, I was 11. Yeah. 69, yeah. I was 12. Yeah. I was seeing this every day on my television screen. And then I was also seeing on television screen the reaction, the anti-war movement. I was seeing on my television screen that fateful day in April 1968, when over 120 American cities were in flames, enraged due to the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King. So a lot of this stuff, I wasn't in Vietnam, but I knew, I was seeing on television.
Yeah, yeah. And obviously, Delroy and Jonathan, to bring you guys into the conversation, Spike Lee is enough, but what made you guys want to be a part of this project, aside from working with Spike Lee? But obviously we can give Spike some flowers here too. What made you say yes to this project?
Jonathan.
Yes, sir. Well, for me, I know what you said, but I gotta say a lot of it had to do with Spike, being able to work with him. And then if that wasn't enough, when I figured out who else was gonna be working with it, and David's main connection in the film is to his dad, Paul, played by Delroy. And so I was a huge fan of Delroy Lendo's work as an actor, and then Spike, so like what duh, But on a more personal note, the thing that made me go, yeah, I think this is for me, was the fact that I am the son of an Army veteran. I'm an Air Force veteran, excuse me, and the grandson of a World War II veteran, a Vietnam veteran, and a Korean War veteran. And I've not had the opportunity to play a story, tell a story, play a character, contribute to a film that speaks to my ancestors, and to the kings that made me. And so for me, that was another big part as to why I wanted to be involved. Why I was so happy to be invited to be involved.
Yeah, thank you for that. Delroy?
The opportunity to reconnect with Spike on such an extraordinary story, a story that is important for a whole host of reasons that I'm sure we will discuss during this hour, but a historical corrective, a fantastic part, and the fact that here was the opportunity to address the fact that rarely to never are stories of this kind told through the lens of the Black soldier's experience. And the fact that oftentimes we are either marginalized or expurgated altogether, disappeared altogether from the narrative And here was a central opportunity with a filmmaker whom I have history with, whom I respect, who has similar passions and intentions, creative passions and intentions to my own. So all of those things contributed to my saying yes to this project.
Yeah. You know, Spike, you are a brilliant filmmaker, but holy hell, you're not a prognosticator, yet this film is arriving, you know, right at a moment of activation that we've never seen actually happen before, not only in this country, but all over the world, really dealing with a lot of the issues that you kind of expertly talk about in this new film. Much like you did with Black Klansman, tell me about, you know, why it's important for you to make sure that you're melding in what's happening right now. And I don't know if you went back and threw some new things in this film before we saw the final cut, considering what's happening, or if you're truly a fortune teller in that way, but we'd love to hear you talk about why that's important for you to make those connections.
Well, if you focus on something that has not gone away, it's not like, I mean, look, this is 1619.
Yeah.
Our ancestors were stolen from all of Africa. The first ship landed in Jamestown, Virginia. So the hate and death we felt as a people was well before it's been captioned on phones. So it's not like the stuff we shot this film, wasn't like there's history behind it. And so this is just the almighty highest put these things together with these two pandemics. The pandemic has been on Black. We had two, the virus, and I also just said before, so it's not something I'm making up, but I'm co-signing the virus of racism and the virus. It says Black lives don't mean anything, paired with the deadly virus, as the people in the hood say, that 19. But I will say this. Several times my friends have called me Negro Damas.
So you are a prognosticator then.
And I don't want to say nothing, but
there we go.
I didn't make that up. They say, you know, Spike, how you think about this stuff? I say, Negro Damas.
Negro Damas. That may be how we refer to you from here now. But
no, but let me tell you. Let me have the slate. I'm going to show you something real quick.
Please, yeah.
This is the slate from camera A. You know, every different camera has an alphabet. And so it says Thailand, Vietnam. So the first day we shot, the first day official principal photography was March 25th, 2019. We ended May 5th in Ho Chi Minh City, the 21st in 2019. But what I like to do in my films recently, I like to shoot stuff on pre-production before the official day of production.
Yeah.
You know what the first scene we shot? Take a guess. All right, you don't know.
I know.
The Black Lives Matter scene.
Okay.
That was the very first thing we shot.
Yeah.
Because people say, did you go back and shoot this Black Lives Matter scene on the low to cut it in? No.
Yeah.
That's the first thing we shot.
Yeah. So that was really truly Negro Damas. I see. You know, as people will start to consume this film, especially because of, you know, the current environment right now, what is most important, or what would you love for people to kind of walk away from this project thinking, doing, or the types of conversations that you guys would love to know that people are having in the aftermath?
And I'm going to say a short answer, so I'm going to defer to brothers Delroy and Jonathan.
Yeah.
And I'll make my answer short because I really try to refrain from telling it, this is Spike Lee, and this film is about so-and-so, so you should think A, B, C, D. Because I respect the intelligence audience. I expect intelligence. I'm dyslexic. I really say I'm dyslexic because shit keeps slipping. I got jokes.
He lit this morning. Okay.
I got jokes. But Delroy, go ahead.
No, were you done, man? Were you really done?
Done.
All right. Similar to Spike, I'm not in the business of trying to tell audiences how they should respond to a piece of work. That's first and foremost. Having said that, in terms of being involved in this project, one of the things that I am profoundly aware of is that in the final analysis, 5 human beings are being presented in this film with all of their foibles and pettinesses, shortcomings, capacity to love and struggle through life. The connective tissue is that we are human beings and we experience every single human emotion and condition that everybody else does on the planet. So that if there is an enhanced appreciation for us, and by extension, for people of color on the planet, for our humanity, I'll be a happy camper. Because if you think about it, one of the main reasons that we are going through what we're going through right now in this country and in the world is as a result of the lack of acknowledgement of us in our humanity, that we are not considered human beings.
Come on now.
Yeah.
So if there's a shift in that paradigm, I'll be a happy camper.
Sounds good.
Young blood.
I feel like we should leave it at that. I feel
No,
like,
man, you speak.
Come on now.
Talk that
Speak for the youth.
I feel is what I was thinking as Delroy was thinking as he was speaking. And I thought, people remember how you make them feel. I want the audience to really remember how we make them feel with this film. And they'll walk away with that. We got history books. Clearly those don't work. You read it, but they don't feel it, So piggybacking off of Delroy, what I want them to feel is this eternal love, this eternal spirit of these soldiers, of these Black men, and in my case, of this Black son, And you have to understand, for me, that it's all a metaphor. These soldiers are not just soldiers in the war; they're soldiers in the world. And that's the drama we're telling. This young man David is not just a son of this war veteran; he's a son of America. You know what I'm saying? He's a son of this Black.
Whoa! Repeat that.
He's a son of what?
It's true. It's true,
he is a son of America. He is the son of this Black man. What is his name? Again, Spike got me. But that's who he represents. That's who we all represent. We are these humans and these life forces that in this film present something and hopefully make folks feel that. And if you feel better, maybe you can do better because you'll know better. Mo better. That's it.
Mo better makes it mo better.
I want to make sure you gentlemen were aware that everyone on this call, they're entertainment journalists and they all have seen the film. So there isn't a concern about spoiling anything that happens in the film, just so you guys know. And two, that I know that, you know, a couple weeks ago, you guys were doing interviews with journalists in advance of this project. I know I talked with Delroy Lindo for my show as part of that. And one conversation I was having in my group chat with some Black journalists was she was so embarrassed because that day she had interviewed the cast and she also interviewed Spike Lee. And she said that while she was interviewing you, she started crying and she was mortified and that you were like so gracious and so kind and so nice and talked her through it. But she was crying because she was saying that your films really provided like a groundwork of the way that America has worked historically and even, you know, even contemporary too. And even still, even as she had consumed your film, she didn't feel like she was prepared to really deal with the reality of what was happening right now in 2020. And we started having this conversation about that. And a lot of these reporters are taking, you know, this conversation and conversations they've had with you guys independent of this and translating them for their outlets. And it really, I think, is important about the role that entertainment plays with, you know, the current state of affairs. And I wanted to know, Spike, you know, how did that make you feel, you know, just kind of having that awareness that people really looked at your life's work as a Cliff's Notes, you know, of how to even mitigate life as a Black body, you know? And
forget about reviews.
yeah.
I cannot, there's no review I could ever get that's me good as someone telling me they saw School Days and not only to make them want to go to Black college, want to make them go to a college in general, you know, from the get-go.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can't get better than that because I think for me, that's evidence that those particular films which people bring up to me, complete strangers, I don't know who these folks are.
Yeah.
And they tell me, you know, what this film or that scene or that actor, you know, what that meant to them and how it had an effect, a positive effect on your life. And as an artist, you can't get better than that. We had 4 research screenings for Black and Puerto Rican Vietnam vets here in New York. And it was one of the most, all 4 times was amazing. And it was difficult.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people, any war, you know, they don't talk about it. You know, that sons and grandparents be trying to, daddy, what's it like in the war? Or mommy, like, they like clam up. Consequently, there were several times for all 4 screens where these guys had to get up, get out of their seats, leave the theater, and just go outside in the lobby till they, you know, compose themselves. And after each of these 4 screens, we would just open it up and let these guys speak. And it was, and these, and a lot of people went to Vietnam War who were underage. It was very, back then, you know, you could forge, you know, like that. People going in 16, 17 years old, even before they graduated high school, before they would be drafted. I mean, they did not have a father who had a doctor that could write some note saying they had bone spur problems to get them out of the war.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all those guys, Black and brown, Puerto Rican, after the film, you know, they all gave me hugs and said, you know, they've been waiting. You know, Spike Lee, goddamn, we've been waiting for you to do this film. You know, we saw Miracle saying that, that's World War II, but that wasn't a minute ago. You know, like, you know, we're still dealing with all this other stuff we brought back from Nam, but it was really that's another great validation. I made this film for them.
Yeah.
I made this film for them. As Hannah said, that's not made up. That's a real person. In fact,
Really?
that speech she has, except a couple of words, I got the verbatim off YouTube.
Wow. Really?
Yes.
Wow.
We were in knowing these brothers at the time, the height of Vietnam War, Black people only 10% of the population, United States and America, but we were a third of the fighting forces. And they sent our Black asses to the front line.
Right.
And unlike other wars, whether you Black, white, brown, when you were a Vietnam vet, you did not get love coming back to the United States of America.
Yeah.
You did not get love. You were called a baby killer. You were spat upon. I mean, if you just do your history, people came back from World War II. I mean, this famous picture in Times Square where this guy just grabbed this woman. You've all seen the picture. He didn't know who that lady was, and she didn't know who he was, but he was wearing that uniform. So Vietnam vets did not get that. So that's an extra trauma.
Yeah.
They're called baby killers.
Yeah.
Everybody, not every single American soldier, Vietnam soldier was in My Lai massacre. But, that's that, Long-winded answer, sorry.
No, thank you. I love a long-winded answer myself. Jonathan, you said that you come from a military family. Did you talk with anyone in your family to prepare before you went overseas to film this, or how did you prepare to help bring this story to life?
Well, my uncle, who was not in the armed services, but his father, Grandpa Anderson, he was a big man and was very, very close to his son, very close to me. And my uncle was very much with it, when his father was overseas. And so he told me stories about, what my grandmother told him not to do around his father now. Baby, don't yell, don't sneak up on your daddy, play outside, don't sneak up on your daddy. And those are things that came into my upbringing when I would go down home to the farm and sit with him. And we'd walk and hike and all these things. But I remember distinctly, just a memory from my grandfather, is he woke up very, very early. I never saw my grandfather sleep. He'd sleep in the middle of the day. But at night, I never saw him sleep. I was also told to never go into his bedroom and wake him up. I just thought his grandpa, you don't want to wake up grandpa. Well, I hear a story about, and I'll say the story quickly, that my uncle told me. My grandfather, while he was over there, was laid up asleep. And just this particular day, he decided to sleep on the back end of his bed, right at the foot of his bed. And he's sleeping there, and a Viet Cong comes in, sneaks into his bunk, right? Tries to kill him. And my grandfather, who's 6'8" and about 310 pounds, reaches up and grabs the man by his throat, right? And rips the man's throat out. Now that's quite awful to hear,
Yeah.
But the part was that my grandfather, who in my eyes is my king, is my God, was so terrified. And mind you, he's not the 60-year-old man I know. You know what I'm saying? At this point, he's probably 20, 25, has this man by the throat and is so terrified that they have to use a horse tranquilizer to release his hand from around the throat. So the amount of terror, that man was experiencing to hold on, to that. Big Andy's what they called him. That's just one of the stories, but I took that in, especially thinking about, Paul and Delroy and the amount of trauma, he might have experienced, the amount of fear. That's the crazy part, right? That you got these grown ass men experiencing childlike fear, when it's all over, when they come home. That's quite sad to me, which leads to the mental health stuff and all that.
And young blood, Mr. Majors, a thing that I would like to interject here, which really people just starting to dig into, is post-slavery stress syndrome.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
401 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm finally they're getting to this stuff, because we do stuff that we don't know why we do it, but now they're being able to do the science and connect like that. This stuff is from our trauma, from our ancestors, and it's still with us as a people, as descendants of slaves. That's the next thing: post-slavery stress syndrome.
I can't stop thinking about how Spike Lee talked about watching the Vietnam War on TV as a kid, because I can imagine in some ways how that inspired you the rest of your career. But I'm curious, Delroy, were you consuming these same images when you were younger? And if so, how did those kind of come back when the lights went up to start recording this film?
The answer is no, I was not consuming this because I was in Europe, and I was also young. I was 16 years old in 1968, so I was not consuming it. And so therefore, my understanding, quote unquote, of the war, of that conflict, was broadly, was intellectual.
Yeah.
I've said numerous times to various journalists that my understanding of the conflict has been enhanced exponentially as a result of doing this film and the research materials that I expose myself to and immerse myself in.
Yeah.
That's the short answer to the question.
Yeah, no, that's great. I was curious, how Europe was portraying, this, but you answered that, and that says a lot, actually. I'm going to jump and take some questions from my A&E brethren. First question is from Jeff Ballou, who works for Al Jazeera. He says, how much of the Five Bloods was inspired at all, even thematically, by Wallace Terry's book, Bloods, even though the book was set during the war itself?
I think that was definitely we used it for research, because that book is the oral history of Vietnam. So if I'm doing a film on Black Vietnam vets, I'm gonna read that book, because this is how they saw their own words.
Yeah.
I had read Bloods in the 70s when it first came out. And prior to going to Thailand to start working on this, I reread the book, and then Spike handed me and all of us another copy of Bloods, right? And it was critical.
Did we meet some guys? We had two guys come to meet us.
We had two guys come in. They're not in Bloods.
Yeah, but they were Vietnam vets, though, right?
Absolutely, Vietnam vets. Absolutely. And that was the other thing. While we were in rehearsal, we had actually one came in during rehearsal, and another brother came in. We were probably, 2-3 weeks into filming, and he came in. And this is a brother who continues to live in Vietnam. But to your question, Bloods was very important, was foundational, not only from the standpoint of my understanding of the war when I read it initially, but central to my entering into this journey of making this film. And I will say one other thing. I'm not going to tell you exactly what it is, but I also took it a step further, and I actually appropriated a physical component of something that I saw in that book, because there are photographs of the brothers.
Uh-huh.
And I was looking at a photograph of one of the cats, and I kind of incorporated something that I was seeing into that photograph into my creation of Paul.
Okay. This next question comes from Jessica Hayden. My apologies, I'm not familiar which outlet she's from, but the question is, could you see this film being a part of history lessons for high schools and colleges?
Yes.
All day long.
I'm sorry.
All day long.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean,
College too.
Mhm.
University.
yeah. I mean, for me, I was actually just talking to a friend of mine here, and I was explaining the film to her, and I saw her get so upset because she went to a very good school and had heard nothing about the African American experience in the Vietnam War.
Mm.
And she was livid because I was like, you don't know, you ain't heard, blah, blah, blah. And she was embarrassed because she had not known this, right?
Mm.
I mean, I think about my kid coming up, you know, she was to see this, right?
Mm-hmm.
I could tell her, but it's better to watch it. There it is. You know what I'm saying? Like, to experience this, it is a part of the fabric of our country. And if we don't get this shit now, we ain't gonna get it. You know what I'm saying? You have silly people walking around doing silly things. You know what I'm saying? Talking crazy. You know, this is an anecdote in many ways. I hate to get so oof about it, but I think it's important.
I mean, but here's the thing though, and the piggyback on Mr. Majors, I mean, I wasn't taught that George Washington owned 123 slaves. I wasn't taught about Crispus Attucks. I wasn't taught about Milton Olive, you know.
That's why this film has the magnitude that it does as a historical, what I call a historical corrective. That's exactly why, because none of us were taught our history.
Yeah.
None of us. You know, I've talked to, there are two journalists that I'm thinking of who both happen to be of color, but British. And they both said to me, I didn't know any of this before I saw this film. So thank you.
Wow.
So the answer is this should absolutely become a part of the curricula that is taught, as far as I'm concerned. Absolutely.
Historical correctiveness is my favorite phrase, and Spike has definitely has done that a lot over the course of his career. This next question comes from Tim Lampley, who is a freelancer. He freelances for TV One, Revolt TV, Black News Channel. This question is for Spike Lee, and he says, looking at what has occurred in the country since you've completed the picture, is there any scene you would take away or add to the Five Bloods, and why?
Film's done. Picture was locked. That's it. You know, no running back in the editing room, and you know, it has to stand on its own. The picture's locked, and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything you would add, considering what's happening right now?
We got what we need.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
the connectivity is there already.
Yeah.
Everything, many things that people are marching in uproar across this God's planet is in the film already. So I don't think we have to Delroy, go ahead. Take it.
Well, the fact that this gentleman is asking the question, to me, is indicative of how topical the film is.
Right.
The fact that he is moved to ask that question suggests to me that there are things that he is seeing in the film which are clearly topical, which are clearly contemporary, clearly current, and that's sparking his imagination in an additional way, having to do that sparks that question. That's what I think.
Yep, I agree. This next question comes from Carla Renata, who also is a freelance entertainment journalist here in Los Angeles. She says, how important was it for you to show women in Vietnam as strong, viable humans who didn't let the war or having children with GIs color their lives in a negative way moving forward post the American war, like you did with Otis's woman?
Can you repeat that question? You froze right there.
Oh yeah, no worries. She said, how important was it for you to show women in Vietnam as strong, viable humans who didn't let the war or having children with GIs color their lives in a negative way moving forward post the American war, like you did with Otis's woman?
Well, Black soldiers had fought many wars. And when the brothers went to France, when the brothers went to England. When the brothers went to Italy. When the brothers went to Korea. When the brothers went to Japan.
There's like a state there too, apparently.
What else I gotta say? That's war. That's one of the aspects of the war. War babies. War babies.
But you know, somebody mentioned to me this morning, somebody I was speaking with, recognized the component of the film, the piece of the film that deals with the daughter that Otis has had with the Vietnamese woman. And I said to him, and very few journalists, I think he's the first that actually identified that component. And I found myself saying to him, that is, first of all, it's completely legitimate and a legitimate part of the story, but in some funny way, that's another film. Because that is a film, and that's a narrative in and of itself. We touch on it in this film. You touched on it. It's been touched on in other films, but that's a whole other narrative that has not gotten its due in film.
Absolutely. This question comes from Brandon Pope from CW26 in Chicago. He says, for Spike and Jonathan, and perhaps Delroy too. Delroy talked about being mentally exhausted during filming in a recent interview. Have either—
Stop, please. To the gentleman who asked that question, that word has started creeping in. I did not say I was exhausted. And I have to stop there. I said I was fatigued. And somehow that has morphed into exhausted. I was not exhausted. I was fatigued, and I have mentioned being emotionally and psychologically fatigued. But I also said, had Spike come to me, and I said this morning, and I'm sorry to interrupt. Had Spike come to me May 25th, when we finally wrapped the film, had Spike come to me and said, hey man, look here, we need to go reshoot XYZ scenes, I would have been ready to do it, right? And I only was aware of that fatigue at the end of the process. So that's another corrective, because I don't want that to enter into the narrative and become the truth.
Sure. No, thank you for that. I appreciate that. And fatigue is I think even much more appropriate considering the question that he asked, which is, have either of you experienced fatigue due to heavy subject matter, especially since we are still dealing with the injustice highlighted in the film, and what keeps you balanced mentally?
Delroy.
Great question. All right. What keeps me balanced mentally? My family keeps me balanced. I exercise a great deal. I swim. I have not been able to swim, but I work out. And that may seem superficial, frivolous, but it really isn't for me, because it helps keep, to the extent that it helps keep my physical body in shape. It translates into my mental condition, my emotional. It's all connected. That's right. It's all connected. The fact that young people, I have a soon to be 19-year-old son, right? 19-year-old man-child, who just got Spike Lee, who just got a full ride to play basketball at a D2 college. We'll talk about that. But the fact that I have a son,
God bless
indeed. The fact that I have a son, a soon to be 19-year-old, I have to, and it's difficult, but I have to on some level do the best I can to remain on point, to remain conscious, to remain available, and in my right mind. The reality for me is that there are so many things that I simply do not know how to make sense of. I'm confused. I'm fearful, and that's real. But there are these other components that I have to hold on to in order to strike a balance. And the last thing I'll say is, it is extraordinary to me that the young people are the vanguard of this rejection of status quo. Not only young people, but the breadth and the diversity. And I'm the diversity of the rejection of this status quo. And I'm holding on to that as hope, and it gives me a balance.
Fantastic. Jonathan, Spike, anything that you guys do to keep yourself mentally balanced when you're dealing with heavy subject matter like this?
Well, I think if I may elongate or open up the question,
Mm-hmm.
I think that you have to be in balance no matter what the subject matter is.
Yeah.
You know, we're all paid to do a job. And you can't, let me say, I can't, well, this film is very light, so I don't need to be focused. But this film is deals with dark material, so I got to be like, I have the same approach throughout all the subject matter. So the subject matter does not determine, my approach to it, because I got to come with it no matter, what it is.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Amen. Amen.
But I will say this.
Mm-hmm.
Doing the documentary, Four Little Girls, about the bombing of the 6th Street Baptist Church, one of the hardest decisions I ever had to make. I have a great researcher. Her name is Judy Ailey. And during the post-production, during the editing of Four Little Girls, she came upon the post-mortem photographs. They were horrific. And I had to get on my knees many nights and pray, should I include it or not?
Yeah.
And I chose to include those photographs in the film because I wanted the world to see what hate looks like and what dynamite does. What it did to these 4 beautiful Black girls. So that for me, that's been I've done stuff, but it's been fictional. Another thing, we were doing Malcolm X, Delroy, you were with us. The spirit of the cast and crew is high.
Amen.
Like here, if you like, those Wall Street scales is like we're up here, stocks are very high. But as we got closer to the end of the film, where we knew we were about to recreate the assassination of Malcolm, it was like stocks had plummeted, not stocks, but our spirit. Because even though we knew it's not real, it didn't feel like that. And cast and crew, we were not looking forward to the day. I think the 2 days we had to do the assassination of Malcolm. So those 2 things I remember automatically: 4 Little Girls and Malcolm X.
Jonathan, anything you'd love to add to the conversation?
Yeah, I would say fatigue is just a part of it. It's just what happens. What we do respectively as directors, as storytellers, it's expensive, if you're gonna do it. It's gonna hurt you a little bit, and the fatigue comes from, for me, the point of view of the fact that we are in service. I'm speaking for myself, but I think the brothers would agree. To some degree, we are in service. We go to work every day. I say all the time, it's for the homies. In the back of my head, I say, I gotta do that again because that, homies ain't gonna like that. You know what I'm saying? That's
Mike, I need another one.
Mike, let's go. That's great.
Run it back.
It's for the homies, and Spike, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but it's too late now. I'm gonna say it. We was texting back and forth. I was texting him right when, because I've gotten very close to these men, Mr. Lindo and Mr. Lee, and I was texting Spike when the shit was just about to hit the fan with Brother Floyd and COVID. And I think it was like right in the middle of that, and I texted him, and all he said back to me was, "We're built for this," And I've been saying that to myself when I'm working out, when I'm, on the 9th interview of the day, we're built for this, because there is, again, a divine force that's coming through us. It's such an incredible time to be alive, such an incredible time to make art, and there's something else at work, and so if you have been given the mantle, if you've been given the ball here, it's for a reason, and you're built for it. You're built for it. We're all built for it. Everyone involved in this movement right now is built for it. So fatigue is fine. You know what I'm saying? Quitting, ain't none of that coming here.
Come on now.
Come on now.
Yeah.
Come on now. And I'm going to add one other thing. There is joy.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't have the words to articulate, and I really do not. Okay, on one level, this is why I went to acting school. Mm-hmm. I became an actor because I wanted to be involved with work that illuminates the human condition. Now, one does not get that every time out, but this is such a work. And I would say every work that I've done with Spike is such a work. And there are others, but I cannot tell you how much, and again, I do not want to come across as being, obsequious right now, but I cannot tell you how much joy and pride I am filled with to be able to sit and represent a work of this nature and talk to journalists about this and interact, have this added interaction with my brothers, with my fellow co-workers. It's extraordinary. And to the sister who was embarrassed, who was crying, who did not want to shut on the visual component, and she said, no, this is just radio, this is just audio. I said to her, embrace your tears, because they're all coming from, those tears are coming from a righteous place. Yeah. I've shed tears. Spike shed tears. Jonathan, we all shed tears. It's coming from a righteous place. And it is an acknowledgement of the fact, and I've said it before and I'll say it right now, it's an acknowledgement of the fact that the work is anointed in the way that it is. And the fact is, it's terrific that the critical response thus far has mostly been really, really positive. But it wouldn't matter even if it weren't. Because we know what we did in the work, and the work stands. Yeah. So it is joyous to be in a situation where I can represent this work in this manner. So there's joy with the fatigue and everything else.
Absolutely. Love all of those answers. Thank you guys for that. This next question comes from my Detroit homeboy, Gregory Dunmore, who works for Pulse Beat Media. And he says, what is the most important takeaway that you want viewers, sorry, people are blowing me up now, that you want viewers of this movie to have, and especially as it will be delivered to and by the protesters who are now in the global spotlight of what is happening right now?
I thought we answered this question.
Yeah, we did.
You know what? We did talk about that, Greg. You came a little late. Well, he has one more question and says, when this movie gets you another Oscar, Spike, will you give us a sneak peek of what you will say in your acceptance speech?
Next question. That's
listen. I will get.
This film has nothing to do with that.
Yeah, I'm going to say this to the brother who asked that question. Uh-huh. The Oscar process and the awards process in and of itself is not only about, no, I'll say this. There are lots of additional components that contribute to the award process and who gets an award and who doesn't. It is, and I'm not saying this as a negative, but it is very political. It is very, very, it's involved, it's complicated. And there are various components that contribute to, who gets nominated, who gets an award. I'm saying all that to say our jobs, and I'm going to speak for Jonathan and Spike. Our job,
Go ahead.
Our jobs as creative workers is not to be concerned with that. Any of that. Our jobs is to do the work.
Mm.
That's it.
Yeah.
And then the chips will fall wherever they will fall.
Yeah.
Why is that important to say? Because the film will come out and people will champion the film. And you have to understand, irregardless of what happens with the film, right? We cannot let a show, right, be the validation of the greatness of the film. Right?
Amen.
But don't
Amen.
you can't base it on anything. You know what I'm saying?
The black and brown brothers who were in Vietnam validated the film already. The
Come
ones
on.
that came those 4 screenings.
Come on. And I don't want to say that awards are not important, but we can't get caught up in that. The work, we've done the work, and the work stands. Period. The end.
And it's too early for the Oscar, that type of that. Come on now. That's too early. Too premature.
Premature, but that at least is letting you know that critics definitely love what you guys have all done with this piece of work.
We appreciate it. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
This next question comes from Jamila Bay, who's in Washington, D.C. And she said, Spike, you've told the stories of Black Americans for 30 years now. And today we're in a place where the idea that Black films and Black stories are not just lucrative, but desired around the world. How do you think this moment should be best utilized so that it's not just a fleeting thing, but a genuine place where we can tell our stories and shape our images around the planet?
Well, my answer is going to be one that I've been saying before the pandemic, is that for one way to ensure we're not a fad where we're hot for a year or two and then we're ice cold, is that people of color have to get in those lofty positions of gatekeepers. These are individuals who work at the various studios who have a green light vote, and they decide what's getting made, what's not getting made, who's writing it, who's directing it, who's in it. If you go across the board, which they keep, you never make these things public, but if you are able to get a poll, very few people of color have a green light vote at studios.
Yeah.
That's how you change it, because you got to be in the room.
Yeah.
I'm going to bite Lin-Manuel's great song from Hamilton, but you got to be in the room.
Yeah.
Where it happens.
Yeah.
Everywhere it happens. That's the title.
Don't sing it though.
Now, here's a question from Carla Renata that's going to make me go back and watch the film, because I think I've missed all of this. If this is true.
Before you ask your question, one small thing, one tiny thing, really quickly. Spike, a few interviews ago, I think he said, and if I'm misquoting you, Spike, correct me right now. I think you said that you took the script of The Five Bloods all over town, all to various studios in the entertainment industry, and the only entity that were willing to take a chance on the film was Netflix.
True.
So first of all, is that accurate?
100%.
All right. So just this, I would just offer this as a piggyback on what Spike just said. That all happened, I'm assuming, the various rejections, the various people who were not willing to take a chance on this, in a post-Black Panther world. Post-Black Panther.
Never thought of it like that. Come on now. Come on.
So now, here's Black Panther that has grossed how many millions internationally?
2
And there's talk, and how much? It was in the millions.
A
the
lot.
Multi of millions, right? And there was talk at the time, would that be a paradigm shift for the perceived viability of Black stories? So in a post-Black Panther world, a filmmaker like Spike has this eminently worthy and human story that happens to be about African Americans, and he still could not get it made other than with Netflix. So I'll just offer that. That's all.
No, that's important. That's important.
I never put that together, Delroy. Thank you. I not put the poster behind her head.
Well, the last question, and it truly is the last question because this conversation has been great. It's, I think, kind of a fun one. Like I said, from Carla, she wants to know, why did Spike name the characters after the Mighty Mighty Temptations?
Now,
I'm like, wait, Paul, is that a thing?
yeah, what's her name?
It's Carla Renata.
What?
Carla Renata.
Oh, well, she is the fifth person that has peeped that. The Five Bloods, their first names are from the original Tempting Temptations.
That's amazing. I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch now. I love that.
You didn't catch that? That went over your head?
I didn't, and I'm from Detroit, so I'm embarrassed now. So I really got to go back and rewatch it. Spike Lee, Jonathan Majors, Delroy Lindo, you guys are all amazing. I'm really excited for everyone else to take in this film. And thank you guys so much for joining us today. Thank you, Netflix, for making this happen.
And I would like to thank the organization, the National Association of Black Journalists.
Amen.
Keep doing your thing. We know it's hard where you're working and what you got to go up against to get the stories out. But if I may speak for the three of us, we appreciate it.
Amen.
We appreciate it.
Amen. Absolutely.
Thank you. We all appreciate hearing that. Thank you so much.
Take care.
All right.
God bless.
Gentlemen,
All
thank
right.
you guys.
Bye now.
Thank you, Task Force.